All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Payoff Pitch. My name is Patrick Lewis here with freshman Joey Olberding. Today is July 12th, Wednesday, back from 4th of July. We hope our listeners had a great 4th of July. I know I did. Joey, say hello to our listeners.
Hello. How are you guys doing?
Well, you expect a response from them? It's like, hey, guys, what's going on? So in our absence, we have had a lot happen. We're going to dive right into it. The Midsummer Classic. I know you want to really talk about this. Two Reds have been into the All-Star game for the Major League Baseball, Zach Cozart and Joey Votto. And we have a lot to talk about regarding Zach Cozart and some storylines. So what do you want to talk about first, Joey?
Well, first, I want to talk about the fact, just hit real quick, the fact that Joey Votto was not an All-Star starter, but Zach Cozart was. He was ninth in the All-Star lineup, just hitting that really fast.
So why was Zach Cozart a starter and not Joey Votto?
Well, because he's had the best offensive year at shortstop of anybody in the league. Mm-hmm. A lot of people said Corey Seager should have started because he has like more home runs and he's really the better shortstop overall. But
from the Dodgers.
Yeah, from the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. But this year, Zach Cozart has just had a better first half, and that's what you really need to get elected into this All-Star game.
And the fans have a big impact too, correct?
Yeah, they vote for who should get in, not for pitchers, but just for position players.
Correct. So the fact that Zach Cozart got the fan vote, had the most fan votes for that position, means he gets to start. Is that right?
Yes.
Cool. So he started ninth in the lineup, and the Reds, I remember as a kid not doing well in the All-Star game. Growing up, I remember even Griffey in the lineup, and I was like, gosh, man, they can't even get a hit.
Here's a fun stat. I learned this the other day. Coming into this All-Star game, the Reds were 0 for 25 in their last 25 at-bats. So if Zach Cozart and Joey Votto couldn't get a hit, then simply put, all the other pitchers in the All-Star game would have thrown a combined no-hitter against the Reds, which is pretty...
It's bizarre.
Pretty bad.
It's bizarre, though, right? You think about 25 plate appearances, and they're an All-Star. They're there for a reason, right? They're the elite of the elite. Right, and sometimes that's not all that accurate because you have replacements of people that aren't playing, like Mike Trout's not playing, Clayton Kershaw's not playing, those pitchers and position players that aren't playing for a particular reason.
I mean, they're still good, though. You still have to throw out good players. Sometimes I've noticed that sometimes the fans elect players that have been good in the past but maybe haven't had such a great year this year, and I can understand that because these players are like legends. Like Yadier Molina coming into the game, I wasn't really sure that he should have been elected. But then
even the game. Yeah,
not to be an All-Star. He hasn't really had that great of a year this year. But then in the All-Star game, he hit a home run. But
why do you think he shouldn't have been elected? Do you think he just kind of got the grandfathered in type of deal, where he's been such a great catcher for so long for the Cardinals, and he's had some injury problems, right?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, Patrick. He's you've seen him as a great guy throughout his career. He's a Hall of Famer without a doubt. So this year, when he doesn't have that great of a year, he's still going to get elected. Of course, Buster Posey was the starter because he's always been great, and he's on track to be a Hall of Famer, most definitely.
Yeah, and a Reds killer. I mean, both catchers, quite honestly, are Reds killers, but Buster
definitely.
Posey. I mean, you remember that grand slam he hit?
All too well.
Gosh, that was the beginning of the end for the demise of the Reds. What was that year? 2012?
12, yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, so heartache back. Let's move on, though, because I don't want to relive that situation. That's personal for me. But we look at the Reds All-Star now, and there's a lot of fun just outside of the baselines happening with Cozart and with Joey Votto and this whole donkey scenario. And I saw on Twitter the other day that Adam Duvall was having a little fun with it. Did you see this post from Adam Duvall?
I did not.
Apparently, he got Zach Cozart a set of cleats that were marked up in a donkey. I didn't get to see the picture too well because it kind of looked like a familiar donkey that was in cartoons or something like that. And I don't know.
I did see that. My brother showed me that. I don't actually follow Adam Duvall on Twitter.
It was a fun little joke.
Yeah, it was nice. I liked it.
And so, do you know the backstory for this whole donkey scenario about like why this is popular now?
I do know the backstory. Joey Votto told the media that he would get Zach Cozart a donkey if he were to be elected to the All-Star game.
But why a donkey? Why a donkey?
Because Zach Cozart really likes donkeys. Whenever he gets a chance to like go to a farm, he always goes to the donkeys. He loves donkeys. I mean, come on, donkeys are cool.
That's the first I go to. I mean, if I go to the zoo, I'm always going, dude, where's the donkey pit, right? Like, I don't want to see the lions. I don't want to see the spider zoo or whatever the heck they have. And I mean, so many different fun things, but no, the donkeys, like, yeah, that's the first thing I think of, isn't it for you?
It's spiritual.
So he gets elected to the All-Star game. What's Joey do? He gets him a donkey. He's going to give him a donkey, right?
Yeah.
He's got to live up to that bet.
He hasn't done it yet, but he has to.
Okay, did you see the interview with Zach Cozart? Because Zach Cozart, and I don't know if this was in like a presser before. I'm sure this was in Miami where the All-Star game is at. He did like a pre-All-Star presser, and people were asking him left and right about the donkeys. Like, well, what's Joey Votto going to do? And Zach Cozart's response was, well, I guess I'm getting a donkey. I know it's coming. It's not. I mean, we have to start playing ball a couple of days after the All-Star game, but I know it's going to be there. I don't have land for it. I guess I got to get land for it. I got to put it somewhere, and it's going to happen. I know Joey's going to follow through with the bet. I just got to find a place for my donkey.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
It is going to happen. I'm sure of it. Joey Votto doesn't fall through on this bet.
But
Who knows?
But how awesome is that, though? I mean, Joey, tell me if you had a donkey, like let's say you got a bear. Like if you were like, oh, I want a bear, right? How awesome would we have like a grizzly bear in your backyard? And you're like, Joey, if you get elected to the All-Star game, I will get you a grizzly bear. And it happens. And I'm going to follow through with it. Joey has no shortage of money. So, I mean, that's not an object for this part. It's just whether or not he's going to do it. And it sounds like he is. He's going to follow through. If you get your grizzly bear, how would you feel? Like, what if, put yourself in Zach Cozart's position.
Well, if I were Zach Cozart in this situation, my first thought would be, why did I agree to have this happen? Because if we're talking about grizzly bears here, I don't want a grizzly bear.
Well, I mean, okay, so
just because like it's a grizzly bear, it's dangerous. Donkeys are not dangerous.
Aside from the dangerous factor, let's say it was something that you can actually have as on your property, like a snake or something like that. People don't think like you can have snake as pets, but you do. People have snakes as pets, but not many people do. You can have I don't know, jicama growing in your backyard. No one has jicama growing in their backyard, right, as a vegetable. So
it's true.
But I mean, what would you feel like?
I would be like, okay, this is happening, and then I'd get ready for it because I know it's gonna happen, like Cozart is. And
Cozart's married. What do you think his wife is thinking?
I don't know. Quite honestly, I have no idea.
I would go nuts. I would seriously, if I was in Zach Cozart's position, I probably would tell him like, hey buddy, like I appreciate the gesture, but unless you're buying land for me and you're putting this up and you're getting like a staff or something to feed him and take care of a staff. Like, come on, think about it. Because he's a Major League Baseball player, he's traveling.
That's true.
For 80 games out of the year, right? 81 games, right? And his wife ain't gonna take care of that. I mean, what are you gonna do? Like, I mean, they doesn't have any kids like old enough to take care of this. I mean, you're gonna have to hire a staff. Be like, okay, well, now I have a farm animal on my property. I mean, you got to think logically about that. Like, he's gonna be kind of screwed. Like, if he doesn't have to have someone take care of it, because I mean, unless his wife loves that type of stuff, who knows?
Well, Joey Votto never said when he'd get Cozart the donkey, so maybe after Cozart retires, he can get him the donkey, and then Zach can be like a farmer, and he can buy the land with all his money, and then he can just have farm animals the rest of his life. That's what Joey Votto should do, and Zach Cozart. They should agree to that.
Okay. Well, maybe we can have like a little bet moving forward, okay?
Yeah.
Maybe if you do something so well at Clark this year as a freshman, maybe if you get straight A's, we can get something for you. Let's think about that, all right?
Yeah,
think about what you want.
All right, I will, but until then, let's move on to the actual All-Star game. How about it, Patrick?
Well, Zach Cozart, speaking of, in his second at-bat, broke that 0-25 streak, right?
It was actually in his first at-bat. It was on the very first pitch off of somebody.
Somebody? Who was the starter?
The starter was Sale, but he was at bat in the third, I believe.
Okay, so it went 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then in the third, possibly.
He led off in the third.
Okay, so he led off in the third, and he got a hit off whatever picture.
I'll check that now.
But regardless, though, that's a huge thing. I mean, honestly, as a Reds fan,
Yeah.
that weight lifted off your back, thinking that, man, I thought this was a curse or something, where the Reds were never going to get a hit in the All-Star game. They come through. But then Joey Votto later in the bottom of the eighth, I saw him up, and he had an opportunity to get a base hit because it was tied 1-1. And the end of the game, the AL ended up winning. Joey Votto had an opportunity to get on base and probably start something, but again, the streak now of Ofer started again because he didn't get on base and struck out.
It was nasty, though. That is a nasty pitch. Like, if you look at that strikeout, it was nasty by the pitcher.
It was, but see, this is the thing. Like, this is the argument I can get in with anybody about the All-Star game and the best against the best. Like, if you're Joey Votto and you're the best hitter at your position, right? Let's say he's, 316 average right now? He's got, 25-plus home runs at the All-Star break. His on-base percentage is pretty high. His slugging percentage is pretty high. I bet that pitcher is thinking, I don't want to pitch to this guy. I mean, from their perspective, the pitcher's perspective, they're saying, man, these are the best hitters in the game. How am I going to get these guys out? But then from the batter's perspective, it's like, man, this is Chris Sale, right? This is Kimbrel. This is Kershaw. This is whoever, right?
Yeah.
I'm going up against. How am I going to be able to hit this guy, right?
Yeah, and I think I saw this thing from Joey Votto. He said to a reporter that he had 4 levels of how he holds his bat. The normal way, 2 strikes, when he's terrified, and Kershaw. And luckily,
Kershaw's his own at bat style for Joey Votto.
Luckily, he didn't have to face Clayton Kershaw because I after that I'm kind of entertained. I kind of want to see what that'd be like. But
so these are all different ways he chokes up on the bat, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking you were talking about. It's not like the way he let me slip the bat around and have the knob facing it. That'd be kind of silly.
Yeah.
Okay, so All-Star game we touched on. It's the AL won 2-1 in 10 innings. We didn't have a tie or anything like that, so this is good. This is technically not the first year, but we had it mean something the last couple of years where it meant home field advantage.
Yes.
For the playoffs, for the World Series, I should say. And this year, it doesn't mean home field advantage.
And I saw a lot, there wasn't that much, hard-nosed ball. There wasn't, a lot of intensity. For instance, Nelson Cruz took a picture with the home plate umpire. Yadier Molina took the picture. He took his phone out of his back pocket.
In-game?
In-game, while he was at bat. And he was like, hey, take a picture. And Yadier was like, okay.
What?
I know.
That's allowed?
No, it's not. But
I guess it's in the fun of the environment, right? They're going to let things slide, have some fun with it, right?
I guess, but, I mean, that's still a lot, though.
That's kind of funny. My initial reaction was, holy cow, how did they not discipline that a little bit better? But then you think about the Midsummer Classic, and it's about fun. It's about pride.
Yeah.
It's about NL versus AL. Back in the 70s, it used to be huge. Even the 60s where they had, NL, man, I'm so forceful on the AL. I want to beat the crap out of these guys. This isn't going to be your night.
Yeah, stuff like that.
It's not like that anymore. It's not like you don't have that vengeance against the opposite league because people are constantly switching leagues and playing for different teams and free agency's nuts.
Now everybody's friends.
Exactly. Good way to put it.
And honestly, I kind of do want to see a bit more of a rivalry in these games, but it's all right. I like it how it is too.
Yeah.
But both sides of that have their good and their bad parts of it. So
I agree. So let's move on. Great conversation about the All-Star game, but I want to hit on something just really quickly that my payoff pitch was if for our regular listeners were last week, not technically last week, last show, I talked about FC Cincinnati in the big game they had against Chicago Fire.
yes.
That was huge for a number of reasons. One, because it was an MLS team coming in, and we just got done beating the Columbus Crew. And the Chicago Fire, even though they were didn't have many stars in previous games, they thought, we can come into Nippert Stadium in our home field on our pitch and take it to us. Well, the game that happened that day when we had our radio show was enormous. There was huge ambiance in Cincinnati, huge excitement down at Nippert Stadium where a ton of fans were, sold out.
Yeah.
Tons of fans where UC Bearcat football games don't even get that much excitement.
No way.
So it was a lot of fun to watch. I tell you what, I'm not a big soccer fan, but I'm becoming one just because of the presence FC Cincinnati has in the city. And they ended up beating Chicago Fire in penalty kicks.
Yeah.
So it goes 0-0 all the way through to regulation time, and then they go through a quote-unquote overtime, like an extra play period. And it was 0-0 through that, so they went to penalty kicks.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, FC Cincinnati probably could have won it in regulation. They had a goal scored, but they said that we were offsides. A lot of different things, officiating-wise, happened in that game. That was probably the most impactful one because when we scored, the player, I forget his name, it's escaping me at this moment, took his shirt off and was, doing one of those like Brandi Chastain things in the World Cup. And it was kind of cool. And they said, whoa, let's hold on. It might have been offsides. And they looked at it, and it was. They took the goal away. We could have won in regulation. But Chicago Fire, I'm telling you what, this team had possession of the ball almost the entire game. FC Cincinnati won against Chicago Fire, which puts them in the quarterfinal, okay, the top 8 for the Open Cup, the U.S. Open Cup. Now they go down to Miami, and they play Miami FC tonight at 7:30 at Ricardo Silva Stadium in Miami. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be something that if FC Cincinnati wins and gets in the semifinals in that top 4,
we're gonna really have that motivation. We're gonna really and we might not win, but we'll get some like woes from other people. How is this minor league soccer team going so far?
Minor league, yeah. It's, I guess, a way to put it. I really, this is fun. It's fun because it's something that is new to our city.
Yeah.
And we never knew we had a soccer town. And a lot of the broadcasters for ESPN2 was in for the Chicago Fire game. And these guys have been doing this for years, right? These announcers are saying, I don't know why MLS would pass up on the opportunity to have a soccer team in Cincinnati if this is the atmosphere that comes with this team. We actually had hashtags for Mitch Hildebrand, the guy that our goalie who in penalty kicks just kept blocking all that stuff. And he had a great game throughout, no doubt.
He's a great player.
He is a great player. And we had hashtags. We had T-shirts made. It was almost kind of like that Team Fiona thing for the zoo. The hippo that we're really pulling for. It was born prematurely. I mean, it's just kind of the similar thing that I felt like, wow, this is a professional player. And to that same caliber, I was like, people are just rallying behind this team just because it's something new and they're winning.
Yeah.
I mean, if they weren't winning, I wonder if the Bailey would still be excited that, their whole, like, quote unquote student section out there, their prideful student section. I don't know if we're getting sold out Nipper stadiums all the time. Like, it would be kind of like a fun little social experiment to see if we were losing.
I think a lot of people would still come, most certainly, but I don't think quite as many. I don't think there would be as much excitement. And you look at the games now, and they're, like, crazy, like, so intense. Every fan is into it. But if we were losing every game, then I don't think that'd be the same.
Yeah, I hear ya.
All right, now I think we should move on again to the NBA. There have been a lot of NBA trade moves since we last talked, and I want to talk about them. For instance, Jimmy Butler. I wanted to talk about this last time, but I didn't get the chance to. He got traded to the Timberwolves for Zach LaVine, Chris Dunn, and the first-round pick, who I forget who the Bulls got later, but it was not Jimmy Butler. And also, Chris Paul, he got traded to the Rockets from the Clippers for Lou Williams, a few picks, and a few players that were drafted last year in the second round, and like a few players who had been kind of in the league, out of the league, in the D-League, in the NBA. But they all had a lot of potential. And for that one in particular, the Rockets trade, I think it was a great deal for both sides, because the Rockets are more of a win-now team, and the Clippers kind of need to go for later now.
Are you telling me that Chris Paul is not going to stay with the Rockets past this year? Is that what you're trying to say?
I don't think so. He's usually a pretty loyal guy, but I don't know.
He's been with 2 teams, right?
Yeah,
He's been with the Pelicans. He's been with the
Pelicans,
Clippers.
Hornets, both of those.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
but you want to compare it to Paul George now, who basically said, like, I'm going to be a free agent after 2018, and when he was with the Pacers. So if you want to get trade value for me, trade me. And he goes to the Thunder.
Yeah.
And the Thunder is basically saying, like, okay, we already know that he wants to go and be a Laker after this year.
Yeah, and the Pacers don't get much in return for that. They get Bismack Biyombo and another one of those in the league, out of the league players that I mentioned earlier.
Okay. But then how can you compare that to the Chris Paul trade then? Help me out, because I feel like the Thunder know that Paul George is going to leave. They kind of have that feeling, but they don't know, the Rockets, if Chris Paul is going to leave or not. Do they, or do they not?
Well, it's already pretty much established that Paul George wants to go to the Lakers, right?
Correct.
It's not as established that Chris Paul wants to go to another team. And Chris Paul, like I said earlier, is more of a loyal guy. So I think that, and the Rockets really wanted him. So I think that's why the Rockets not only gave up more, but I think he's still 30 years old, and he's still a really good player. He was the best player on the Clippers for years, and he was really the face of the Hornets for a while. Mm-hmm. And I think they want him along with James Harden. Oof, just think about that combination. That's crazy.
Yeah, but you look at the Thunder when he was there with Westbrook and Durant, right? I mean, how is that not a big 3 that people were talking about and trying to build around when Oklahoma City had him? Then you got free agency money leaving there, so Harden leaves.
Yeah.
And then you just have Durant and Westbrook, and then obviously Durant left eventually. But that big 3 was a huge thing, right?
Yeah, and they also had Ariza, who was still there, and he was really good.
Well, isn't Ariza with the Rockets now? He might be.
Well, Ariza's on the Rockets now, and there was also Ibaka, who's on the Raptors now.
Right.
So
that was a big deal.
That was a big deal.
And I don't see, we talk about the big 3 of LeBron James and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade when that first started happening.
Yeah.
But why wasn't the conversation happening with them? I mean, you're not talking LeBron James, but Kevin Durant right now in these playoffs, if we had that type of matchup back then, in which we kind of did have, because I believe the Thunder did play the Heat.
In 2011.
Yeah. So, I mean, Durant matured as a player. LeBron maybe matured as a player, obviously. But Durant, I think, surpassed LeBron just in that matchup, that one-on-one matchup in these past playoffs. So if they can get those 3, I mean, money-wise, it's just not going to happen, I don't think. It's just almost impossible to put them together. But why wasn't that talked about?
Well, I think the thing was, back in 2011, when the Thunder had all those guys, it was because of the fact that they were still young. Not all of their players have developed. They're more developed now. Back then, Durant was their only really good player. Westbrook had the potential of being really good, and he is now.
Okay.
Harden had the potential, and he was the 6th man. He was really good. But still, he was overlooked by Durant, and Ariza was still not really doing that much, and same with Ibaka. And then they kind of came into their own like a year after, and they didn't make the finals then. Ibaka and Westbrook were still good, but Durant was still like the headline there. And while in Miami, there was still LeBron, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. And all 3 of those superstars combined, you kind of have to focus more on that rather than what could have happened.
I agree. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So when we're looking at the roster right now for the Rockets, you got James Harden, Chris Paul, obviously, Trevor Ariza, possibly Ryan Anderson, Ryan Kelly. Didn't they get that via trade with the Hawks, I think?
Yes.
And then they got a center. And who's at center right now? Who's their big? Nene?
Yes, it is.
Is it going to be Nene?
I think
Capella,
it is
maybe?
Nene.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if all of those can jive together. Ariza, I mean, he's a good player, but I don't know. Can he give you 20 points a game? Can he give you a solid 15 points a game and 7 rebounds?
Oh, yeah, totally. He's a total offensive player. He can shoot from 3. He can go inside, and he's a big man. He's not the biggest man ever. I think Nene's bigger, but he's big. He can get you rebounds.
I feel you. Okay, good stuff. So let's transition now into our ending segments for our payoff pitches.
All right, Patrick, I'm going to let you go first this time.
Oh, aren't you such a gentleman? Oh man, you're so funny. So yeah, let me get started. My payoff pitch for this July 12th on Wednesday is Wimbledon. Wimbledon's tennis tournament has been going on since 4th of July. So when everyone was partying on the boat or shooting off fireworks or drinking a nice cold one next to a grill, putting on burgers and hot dogs, Wimbledon was starting up on the 3rd of July. And this is a 2-week thing.
Yeah.
Wimbledon is a 2-week tournament where they have a number of different players on so many different courts over in England. Prestigious tournament. Prestigious. They have it's a year-long process to get this grass court prepared for all of these players playing on it on an everyday basis. It's not like hard court and it's not like clay. Both surfaces on tennis that don't necessarily wear as much as grass. Wimbledon is the only tennis tournament that has a scheduled day off in between these 2 weeks for that grass to kind of get a reprieve.
Yeah.
It's hard for that grass. You think about grass. You're constantly standing on it. It's going to die. It's going to go brown. It's going to look deathly, right? You don't want to do that because the constant wear and tear on the grass will make it slippier. People will not necessarily get a good grip on the surface. So over these 2 weeks, the grass court in Wimbledon has been a lot of fun for me to watch because I grew up a little bit watching tennis with my family members and my grandparents loved watching tennis. So my payoff pitch is Sam Querrey. Sam Querrey is the first American actually today just beat the number 1 player in the world, Andy Murray, the Great Britain player, who's obviously getting the local appeal because they're playing over there. He beat the number 1 player in the world today to move into the semifinals. So he is in the last 4.
Wow.
Yeah, so he has the opportunity to become the first American in the finals for a very, very long time, and the first American to reach the semifinals since 2009 when Andy Roddick did it. And yeah, Andy Roddick. Do you remember Andy Roddick?
I remember the name. I don't remember. I remember that he was good for a while, but then kind of dropped off.
Okay. Well, Andy Roddick is kind of like a Roenick. Roenick is the 7th, I believe, and probably not the 7th. Maybe like the top. He's a top 10 player in the world right now, and he played, I believe it was Federer today, and that score might be, honestly, if I can look it up real quick, that score might be already completed. Federer was beating him. He might have beat Roenick in straight sets. But Roenick is a Canadian player that reminds me of Andy Roddick, and if I had to put Sam Querrey in the same sentence, I would probably compare him to maybe like another Pete Sampras. Because he's kind of lengthy, he's got a nice serve, he's strong in a lot of elements of his game, and he's in the Final Four right now, and he's going to play Cilic, the Croatian, cup, and Cilic is the 7th ranked player in the world, and Querrey is the 24th player ranked in the world.
Well, if he can beat Andy Murray, then I'm sure he can beat this Croatian guy.
That's a good point, but Andy Murray seemed to have a little bit of a struggle injury-wise. His hip, he dominated, and it was a 5-setter. Sam Querrey loves to go 5 sets for whatever reason. He's had 2 already in Wimbledon, and he's not going to dominate any particular player, but in the final 2 sets, the 4th and 5th set against Andy Murray, he went 6-1, 6-1. And it was clear that something wrong was with Murray. And he was down 2 sets. Murray won the 2 of the first 3 sets, and you thought, man, Querrey's not going to make it. Andy Murray had the local crowd up 2-1. It was going to, and then something happened. You would think that the number 1 player in the world isn't going to go from up 2-1 to losing 6-1, 6-1 in the last couple of sets. So maybe something was wrong with Murray, but don't take anything away from Querrey because he's going to come in, I think, put up a really good fight against Cilic, and if he gets in the finals, that'll be something that I'm looking forward to. And my payoff pitch, looking forward to next week. So that's my pitch, Joey. Let's hear about what you got payoff pitch wise.
All right, so my payoff pitch, and what seems to be a running trend, is about baseball once again. And during the All-Star game last night, I noticed something that made me upset. It made me feel just kind of disappointed, and I just want to touch on that. The All-Star game was on Fox, and you'll see all your local baseball games. If you ever watch a Reds game, it'll be on Fox Sports Ohio. And something they did during the All-Star game was they interviewed the players, which is all right. You know, you can interview the players. That's fine. But they would interview them while they were on the field, like while they were on the field.
They were mic'd up.
Yeah, they were mic'd up on the field. So, like, George Springer, for example, the left fielder for the Houston Astros, was mic'd up in the third inning, and they were just talking to him throughout the whole inning, and they wouldn't talk about any of the players up. So, like, for instance, Zach Kozart got a hit. They didn't talk about him. And when they finished talking about him, they didn't talk about Kozart, which makes sense. But when Kozart was up later, you know, they wouldn't talk about him again because they were talking to another guy or something like that.
So they weren't giving Kozart the light of day. Like, he's an all-star. He's up.
Yeah.
It's his first all-star appearance. They're not even giving him any highlight. They're talking to this guy in the field.
Yeah, and the first time he was up, he got that base hit. And the second time up, he had a lengthy at-bat, but they were talking to George Springer. And they did this with a few other guys, too. And it's just something that's kind of notable to me. And the things they were talking about weren't even that, like, good, good topics to talk about, especially when this guy's in the outfield and he's in the middle of playing in the All-Star game. Like, they also talked to Bryce Harper, and at a point they were talking about the Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys, the football team.
To Bryce Harper?
Yeah, Bryce Harper.
What is the connection there?
See, I don't know, but they were talking about it. Bryce Harper was like, so how about Dak? And they just started talking about the Cowboys. And while he was in right field, while they were showing like the actual game in like a little corner, but was focusing on talking with Bryce Harper. And it was just kind of stupid, the whole thing. And, you know, that's something that you can see in like the World Series too. A lot of stuff like that. Like for instance, in the World Series last year, I believe Travis Wood for the Cubs hit a home run against the Indians, like a 2-run shot. But they were busy talking to one of the Cubs players while it was happening, so they didn't get like a home run call. Instead, they just heard the guy like, wow, and then they went to the home run. But nobody was talking about it because they were talking to the player. And, like, I don't like that. Like, you can talk about it between innings and, like, not go to a commercial break or something. But I just don't think that's all right. It's just not in the nature of the game. You need to focus on every player, even if they're a pitcher or if they're last in the order. So my payoff pitch for this week is that Fox Sports needs to just focus on everything and don't need to entertain people by having interviews all the time, interviews while the game is going on, because it really ruins what the game actually is. You want to watch a game for the actual game, the calls that happen on each and every play. You don't want to hear it for talking to Joe Madden about what's happening during the game or talking to Bryce Harper about the Cowboys. It's just something that annoys me.
I agree. Yeah, it's a little double-edged sword. Honestly, it's hard because in the however many games, let's say Fox Sports does for the Reds, they got to fill that space, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of time in there, like 3 or 4 hours sometimes that they have to fill space and talk about something and have some sort of entertainment for the listeners and the watchers of the game. And so when they have that entertainment, it's hard if a nice play happens or an impactful play during the game happens, and then they're like, oh crap, like we have to switch back to that. And as an announcer, I know that's a little tough because I've been in that situation before, and you're trying to talk about some certain thing, and all of a sudden a big pass play happens on, third down or something. But it's a little difficult because especially at the major league level, when they're getting sponsors and they're getting that money, they're gonna have to, make them happy. And that's what it's all about, the end game of money, man. So again, I agree with you. It's all about trying to find that balance of entertainment, integrity of the game, fan experience. But yeah, man, that's something that Fox and some of these big broadcasts are going to have to deal with, and a lot of backlash, especially with social media now.
Yeah, it's something that they just need to figure out. I don't think people like it. People don't like the interviews. People think they're useless. If you're a true baseball fan, then you don't need that to be entertained. And if you do, you may as well be watching another sport.
Yeah. Yeah, but people are always trying to find something different, right? They're always trying to do Fox is trying to do something better than ABC did for the NBA playoffs.
Yeah.
Right? They're always trying to outdo each other. So trying to get something new and better, the next car model of the next year, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
All right, and I think that'll do it for this edition of the Payoff Pitch with me, Joey Olberding, and Patrick Lewis. And I ask of you to subscribe to us on YouTube at Clark Montessori. Look it up, and check us out on TuneIn Radio, and also keep listening to 95.7 MRC, Cincinnati's new music